Shaun Stevenson, folks, he is in the All Blacks as injury cover for Mark Telea. But was he robbed? Should he have made the All Blacks squad proper on his own merits of his Super Rugby season thus far? We'll go through a quick intro about some stuff we're going to talk about. The stats, which is the kind of head-to-head between him and guys like Mark Telea, Whanganuku Clark and Will Jordan and whatnot. And then a wee conclusion, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. So, for the intro part, we are going to talk some stats. And I got to say, with stats, if you're on like a spectrum of stats for baseball are the be-all and end-all money ball, and then the other end, like rugby is a team sport and stats don't mean jack, I'm kind of in the middle-ish towards that stats can give you a genuine indication on where a player is at. But they're certainly not the be-all and end-all because it's a team game, it's fluid. You can play on a team with, which never spins it wide to your wingers, or a team which boots it to ball, puts a lot of boot to ball, or a team which, they just tuck it up the jumper and the forwards just go through phases. So it's kind of hard to compare head-to-head, but as I said, they can give you a bit of an indication. So that's where I am, because every time we talk about stats, there's somebody who goes, stats are meaningless. They don't mean anything. Rugby's not a stats game. Well, that's where I stand on it. So we are going to compare some stats. And, you guys can let us know how much we can read into them or not. But, for the stats comparison, we're going to look at 7 guys. 6 of them made the All Black squad proper, plus Shaun Stevenson. So the other guys are Lester Whanganuku, Mark Telea, Caleb Clark, Emma Narawa, Will Jordan, and Dallas McLeod. Now, keep in mind, most of these guys play different positions and have played different positions throughout the year. They largely play for different sides, so that goes into the intro part about stuff being different player by player. But if we just take like a real surface look, like Stevenson's stats are amazing because he's the third guy for tries amongst the guys that I talked about. The first for try assists, the first for kicks, the first for passes, the second for offloads, third for clean breaks, the second for run meters. And he's got a really nice kind of balance of tries and try assists. 11 tries, 7 assists. Compare that to a Whanganuku who's 13 tries, 1 assist, or a Telea who's 12 tries, 3 assists. He's got a nice balance. I mean, Will Jordan's got bloody sexy numbers with 3 tries, 6 assists, having played less than half the game time of some of these other guys. But, I mean, Caleb Clark's 7-0, not an assist, but 7 tries. Dallas McLeod's 2-1. So that's just real surface level stuff. That makes Shaun Stevenson look pretty amazing. And I think all of us would agree he's been having a pretty bloody good year. But what about the stuff which you can kind of get your teeth into a bit more? For example, one of the things they always talk about with old shooter is his defense. Is his defense all that bad? Because he's got a reputation for having bad defense. Well, if we look at tackle percentage, and as I say, with the stats, you've got to be careful because tackle percentage is not the be-all and end-all. It's just, did you attempt to tackle, and how many of those ones did you make, how many of those did you miss? It doesn't take into account positioning. It doesn't take into account, were you defending a 2-on-1? And you kind of had to make a scramble defense where you tried to tackle the first guy and then leapt for the second guy as he passed the ball. You know what I mean? It's just a raw number. So take it for what it's worth. But generally, guys who you watch on the field who tackle poorly have poor tackling defense numbers. So where's Shooter in this? He's in the middle of the pack. Your best guy for tackle percentage is Narawa. Tackles at 90%, which is phenomenal for a guy who plays in the outside backs. A lot of flankers don't have those kind of numbers. Below Narawa is Telea with 83. And then below Telea is McLeod with 82. So all those guys have really quite nice numbers. Like for an outside back, I know they, as I said, vary around their positions. But for those numbers to be above 80%, it's pretty solid. Narawa's at 90 is amazing. Then you got Stevenson at 79%. So he is just below the 80% mark, 79. So he's your middle of the road guy. He is above the likes of a Will Jordan, who's at 76%, Caleb Clark, who's at 78%, and Lester Whanganuku, who's your last guy, at 66%, which is genuinely pretty bad. Like, Whanganuku makes the squad, obviously not for his tackle completion rate, because his numbers in that regard are pretty low. But what about attacking prowess? Now, remember, all these guys play a different amount of games, but let's just have a look at their run meters per carry. So divide the number of run meters they had across the season by the number of carries they made. It's a pretty simple metric. Obviously, if you get an intercept and you get 80 meters unopposed, that kind of blows things out. But across the course of the season, again, it kind of evens out. Your first guy for run meters per carry is actually Caleb Clark, who's gotten a bit of stick, but 8.6 meters a carry. He's getting some go forward ball. Second behind him is your man Shooter. So Shooter was middle of the pack for the tackling, but for his run meters per carry, he's second. Keeping in mind he plays fullback, and a lot of the other guys we're talking about are playing on the wing. I feel like fullbacks get a few more free meters when they catch the ball in the backfield, but I mean wingers catch the ball in the backfield as well, but it's another one to kind of keep in mind. Behind Shooter in second is Telea on third, 8.3. Then Narawa's fourth, 7.4. Jordan is fifth, which is interesting because he's also a fullback, so that's kind of head-to-head. Stevenson's well ahead of Will Jordan. And then sixth is Whanganuku, seventh in McLeod. You might think, well, Will Jordan kicks it more than Stevenson. Well, actually, no. Shaun Stevenson kicks it the most of any of the guys that we're talking about. He is the most likely to put boot to ball, whereas Whanganuku's the most likely to run, and Jordan is the most likely to pass. So there you go. What about errors? How safe are these guys? Now, the main two errors we're looking at are penalties conceded and turnovers conceded. So a kind of negative stat, not including yellow cards because those are coming under penalties as well. But when you had an action on the game, how often did you do something bad? Well, in terms of turnovers conceded and penalties conceded, Shooter is your least guy for the likelihood that he will have an action which is negative. So if you're looking at all his positive actions, which are kicks and passes and runs, and how many negative actions does he have, only 2% of his actions come out as negative. So he's more likely to have a positive impact. Then you've got Will Jordan in second, McLeod and Clark, plus Telea third, and then Whanganuku and Narawa are your most likely to kind of give away a penalty or turn over a ball compared to Shooter. So far, man, Shooter's looking pretty good. Can we find a stat which makes Shooter Stevenson look lesser than the other guys? We sure can. And that would be looking at how many clean breaks and defenders beaten does he generate per carry. So not just the run meters, which you could argue he's getting for free some of the time at fullback, but how often when he's making a carry is he likely to generate a clean break or a defender beaten? He is last 38% of the time. Shooter is likely to do that, whereas you got Mark Telea, who's way in first with 79%. Now that's obviously, again, a pretty blunt metric because one carry you could beat 5 defenders and then you make 5 runs across the course of the game. It looks like you beat 1 defender each carry, but it was actually one big carry that kind of generated a bunch of them. But you get what I mean, across the course of the season, still averages out. So Talea's first, Narawa is second, and then Clark is third. Those are your top 3 guys. Interestingly, Whanganuku's down in fourth despite busting through some of my Blues guys. And Will Jordan is the only guy who is just kind of above our man Stevenson, who's coming in dead last. And remember, that's just an average, so it doesn't matter how many minutes you've played. So, yeah, that was kind of a surprising one. But remembering, Jordan and Stevenson are your biggest kickers and passers of the ball. So that may be a factor in that as well. The last one I want to look at is, it kind of works to the minutes you've played. How many positive involvements did this player have on the game compared to how many minutes they played? We can have a look at that by adding up all their minutes and how many positive things they do. Positive things talking, how many carries did they make, tackles did they make, kicks did they make, passes did they make, all the positive influences they're having on the game directly affecting the ball. Obviously, we're not looking at rucks cleared out and whatnot, but we are talking about outside backs for the most part. So, interestingly, your best guy for positive actions per game is Will Jordan. He is averaging 29 positive actions per game. The second equal guys is 3 guys with Telea, Stevenson, and McLeod. Each of them is averaging 25 per game. Your least likely is Caleb Clark, who's averaging 19, so a full 10 below our man Will Jordan. Narawa and Lester Whanganuku were 6th and 5th respectively. So to wrap all this up, it's been a lot of stats I've been throwing at you, but the pure argument about Stevenson not being able to tackle seems to be marginally true, but he's no worse than some of the guys who made the squad, like Caleb Clark and like Lester Whanganuku. He seems to have a positive impact ball in hand. He has a positive impact boot to ball. He has a very low error rate, and his positive impacts of the game are among the best guys in that All Black squad who ended up making it, who would be fighting out for that positional thing. The only thing you can argue, based on the ones that we looked at, is that he doesn't bust as many tackles as some of the kind of bigger units who are in the side. So, I don't know, folks. I thought that was kind of interesting to see. I would have said, based on those numbers, he deserves to be in the squad, potentially ahead of somebody else. Is it his age that's counting against them? Is it a possibility that there's some kind of personality clash off the field? They don't like the cut of his jib. Has he already signed for an NRL club and we haven't heard about it? I don't know. But, yeah, looking at the pure numbers, which, as I said, have a big asterisk about them as to terms of how relevant they are for rugby. But looking at that, and based on just what you see with your eyes week in, week out, it would appear to me that he's been pretty hard done by. But you guys let us know what your thoughts are. If you were to drop one and replace one, who would you go with? My numbers would probably say Caleb Clark, but he's a different position. He's a left winger. Shaun Stevenson is playing fullback. He can play wing, but it's not a like-for-like replacement. But, yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.